Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. Technically, we're at the halfway point of the season, 9 weeks in the books, 9 weeks to go, right?
Let's call it 9.5 weeks. Shout out
nine
Mickey.
and a half weeks.
Shout out Mickey Rourke.
It's a great one.
When I was sick, a movie I hadn't really watched for a long time, Pope of Greenwich Village. I forgot.
Nice.
Happily Married Dude. Mickey Rourke was. If you only know him from like The Wrestler and that one time he was a bad guy in a Marvel movie, you should go watch some early Mickey Rourke. He was a bit of a heartthrob guy in the 80s.
That was A-list.
But yeah, nine and a half weeks here, and
cool.
We're kind of half.
Yeah.
I hate it. I want there to be 18 games just for to have the nice halfway cutoff.
Yeah, let me test the theory on you.
Close. I want to hear it.
Yeah, give me that. I feel like if you divide the season up into quarters, quarter 2 is now in the books, right? Yeah. And if from a handicapping perspective, I feel like the greatest success you find in the first quarter of the season is typically like just being early on a team for or against a team.
Being right on
having a good prior, right? Having a prior that's better than market.
Well, yeah,
right?
being right on the things that you think are off market to start the season.
Yeah, your prior is better than market to the good or the bad for a handful of teams, right?
100%.
And after a quarter of the season's gone, there's been a lot of market adjustments. Presumably, if it's moved in the direction that the data has told you, then I feel like the second quarter of the season is largely just trying to capture overcorrections, right? Like we really thought this team was good, but it turns out data was really messy because they played the Broncos when the Broncos didn't have Justin Simmons in there. That's how they scored 70 points, and their EPA per play is off the chart, right? Like, I feel like there's, a quarter of the season where it's literally just correcting back as you kind of get a more complete data set. Does that check out?
Yeah. I mean, people talk about week 2 so much as being this, overreaction week and, overreacting to what you saw in week 1. But it's kind of the same thing on a bit of a grander scale, like what you're saying. The second quarter of the season is trying to suss out what actually is meaningful. Like you said, like, hey, this team is actually good on offense, or hey, this defense isn't good. Yeah, they've played some bad offenses. Yeah. They're even more hurt now. Like this defense is not a top, like it might be showing all over the board and whatever stats you want to look at. This is a top 12 defense, and you can just find out about like, well, yeah, probably not. And then that's where you make your money. Or, in the case of, like you said, the Broncos, people getting ahead of, hey, the Bengals are back a little bit, things like that. It's where you make your cash.
Yeah. And I think, because like now you have 8 or 9 games of eight or 9 game sample on every team. You have a pretty good read on the quality of opponents, offense and defense, quality of quarterbacks that they faced, the quality of the quarterback for that team, right? Like you've got a little bit more complete picture. There's probably a couple of games you got circled where you're down weighting because key players were missing or their opponent's key players were missing, right? But you've got enough kind of context to really have a general rating on these teams that is, meaningful, right? And quality rating on these teams that is somehow, some way, if it maybe not perfectly anchored to the market, but probably pretty close to market. That makes Q3 tough because if it's all been solved or it's largely been solved, then you're now left with a couple of things, like literally just picking spots where teams are going to have a performance that's off their median, literally finding, and that could be because situational. It could be because of injuries. It could be because of returning players, right? Like you kind of need a reason to be like, hey, I'm off market here. The reason's because I'm adding this player back in, and now I think their rating, I'm adding a healthy Joe Burrow back to the Bengals. Therefore, their rating should be their preseason prior, not what, it's going to look like relative to the rest of their season data. His performances these last couple of weeks are going to look like, +1, Z-score of 1, 2 type of performances. But in reality, it's just, he's back and he's healthy. And, so you're going to need like a reason to have, to believe that a market number or why a team is going to land on the good or the bad of their median, right? The other kind of key thing I think that I'm going to try to point out that I've always utilized at this time of year is we as bettors have us read on all of these teams, but presumably the good teams and good coaches have a much better read on all of these teams, right?
Yeah, and I think that's where you have like these multipliers, like
yeah,
where you're looking at like the market has a pretty good read on what these two teams are. This number's probably good, but this is a spot where more often than not, maybe this team X, their offense has a fat tail to overperforming against this particular defensive scheme.
That's a good example.
This particular defensive coaching staff, this particular matchup. Maybe there's a few injuries that you don't think are priced in enough with a bit of a cluster here or there. And then at the same time, it's like, well, we also have a coach or a defensive coordinator, an offensive coordinator who has, repeatedly found ways to just mix up their coverages, mix up their offensive game plan, do something that, has turned into an outlier performance, year in and year out. Or even, and maybe it's not a guy that's been around for a long time and you're just comfortable with the matchup. You like what you've seen from them so far. You like their second half adjustments. I think coaching is a bit of a multiplier at this, in the second half of the season.
Sure.
Especially when you get that matchup you like.
Yeah, and I think
the Arthur Smith for sure will figure it out.
Can't do worse. I guess he could probably. All right. But no, I think the point I was going towards is, and I like your add on there, but why would you say in a vacuum a divisional game should have a line that's a little shy of fair? Maybe divisional opponents are familiar with each other. They're dialed in on each other's tendencies, strengths, weaknesses, right?
You have a huge notebook on this team. Like you prepare for them. What is it? Used to be a lot easier, the math with 16 games, but
sure. It was an 8-game season.
Yeah, an eighth. Like still, it's like over 10% of your season every year is spent preparing for this team. If it's a coach that's been there for a while, and if it's a coach on the other side that's been there for a few years, you've prepped for this particular offense.
Quarterback that you know well.
It's just you have a absolute massive amount of notes, and that's where I think maybe there is some advantages to, like let's just throw Todd Monken's name out there. Somebody who doesn't. Call. I mean, we already bet him. That's the only bet I have.
Yeah, right.
But Monken, not only it's trying to figure out what this offense is for us. Like we're still trying to figure out exactly what the master plan is with everything. It's looking all right at times, but for Jim Schwartz, for Lou Anarumo, everybody on the Steelers, defensive. Who's the Steelers?
That's the whole AFC North, man.
Yeah, why can't? Oh, that's I'm just throwing them out there.
Terrell Austin or something.
Yeah, there we go.
It's
Tomlin.
Tomlin, yeah.
But Tomlin and his DC, these guys, it's a little more of a struggle trying to figure out a new coordinator, and that I think it gives you an advantage if the new coordinator's working out. If it's oh shit, this is not working. It doesn't matter if it's hard to figure it out. It's like, well, it's bad. It's easy.
Yeah, right. That's very fair. And I think there's definitely we say a lot of we're sarcastic humans. And if you're listening to this podcast, even if you've listened to all 650 episodes of this podcast, you probably don't catch every time we're being sarcastic, and you may not be able to tell sometimes when we're being serious if it's a topic that often gets lampooned in handicapping space. But like the tongue-in-cheek, like Andy Reid good play stuff, like I'm kind of not kidding. Like it's not a joke. And a huge element of, if you've been in the league, if you've survived this long, if you have good plays, it doesn't behoove you to use them all the time and put them on film and have everyone, in the, kind of completely tuned in to exactly what you're trying to do with the players you have. Right. And, so it's also, there's definitely like a category of coaches and teams, a quality of player who I think you can say, kind of falls outside being able to truly identify their tendencies and really be able to craft a game-specific game plan that gives you an advantage, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is all coming to me just because I talked about this with some smart people today, relative to Belichick, and it was like, well, somebody, I can't remember who, I wish I could give him credit for this, but somebody, maybe it was CD Carter, somebody was basically, the more data we get, the more it's looking like the Patriots just succeeded because Tom Brady played at an impossibly high level for a million years.
I hated that post. Yeah, and I was like, Brady was really good, but right. No, that was like,
it's like the Patriots team got better from beginning to the end of the year every year. They always kind of were changing. They always had multiples. They were, there was always a new wrinkle. They were always especially good at taking away whatever you were the best at, right? And so I think like really that is probably what we miss giving the most credit for Belichick, which was an ability to identify tendencies in your opponent and kind of craft a game plan, know your team well enough to craft a game plan that takes away what your opponent wants to do with plan A. And
yeah, when you start talking about like player development, everyone starts looking
at Adams tendencies. Yeah.
Ernie Adams was a big deal.
Yeah.
That might, maybe the Ernie Adams thing is starting to finally that's starting to pay negative dividends, whatever you want to say. Like, you're starting to feel some of the pain of not having him, but the timeline that you see player development happen in most, organizations is always a bit longer. Whereas like, it always felt like these defensive players would just progress so quickly for like during the time of the Patriots, like true dynasty years, you would have guys. It's like, oh my God, this guy is a star. He's a legitimate star now. And they do that 2 or 3 times. It's like, they have 3 all-pros in their defensive backfield. They have another great linebacker. I'm trying to think of like some of their best pass rushers. It's not like they had bad pass rush, but a lot of it was secondary.
Richard Seymour, and Vince Wilfork. Yeah.
Wilfork, it felt like they had some big guys in the middle, but I'm trying to think of like who the best edge rusher from the Patriots. Throw some names out there. I don't want to spend too much time.
I mean, Seymour's probably the best but he was just a double teamy guy. Like he was just so good that he had
Wilfork in the middle though.
Wilfork was kind of the same.
I can't say and not picture him in the overalls like maybe in the barbecues.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the point is just that like some of the beauty of the Patriots and why like they kind of defied models, why they were always a winning bet in the end of the season, especially was like they were 2 steps ahead of every other team. And I think there are certain teams that have kind of caught up to that clearly. I think in general, like just defense being at a place now where it's way ahead of offense in the NFL is very, very clear. So maybe that's kind of muddying that a little bit. Right?
Losing Dante too, as well as Ernie Adams, was tough.
Vrabel. He's kind of the last guy with the light on still, and the last guy. Yeah.
Vrabel's top 5 receiver for me in that. It's like Edelman, Moss, Welker, Vrabel. He caught a lot, but Chandler Jones is a good answer. Teddy Bruschi.
Bruschi. Willie McGinnis.
There you go.
All right. So I guess like where I'm going at is that like I feel like if we can identify like some teams where if we think that the book is out on a team and we're not seeing them continue to innovate, continue to add wrinkles, continue to surprise us, then that should be a sign, right? Like that should be information. And so I think that's kind of one thing I'd like to focus on here in Q3 beyond just the continued integration of understanding of which players matter, why, and in particular how that marries with a scheme and stuff. So
I'll point out a couple things once we get to these games. I don't want to spend too much more time on this. We'll bring it up as we get to them. But I have a couple coaches I have some notes on. It's like this guy might be something.
Okay, well, let's talk about a coach where I think a message was quietly sent today that you better start winning.
Yeah.
I think, chewed on the idea of, well, I mean, the ownership group in Carolina, they handpicked Frank Reich. Like, he put together an all-star staff of assistants. Like, they're not gonna end this thing in 1 year. Well, I don't know that this was unrelated, but I suspect it was not. Third manager, fired by Tepper at the Charlotte FC today in third manager in 20 something months. And I kind of feel like there was a thinly veiled message there that like you need to fix this situation, Reich, or we're not afraid to cut ties with the guy after a year if it's not going well. And I think we talked about it on Sunday. Like, I have a vote of no confidence in Reich right now. Like, the idea that Bryce Young in his 8th game of the season, or 8th or 9th game of the season, whatever it was last week that he played, I think it was his 8th game of the season, that it was his worst game of the season so far under a second play caller. That's a huge problem. For Bryce Young, they gave up an enormous amount of future capital for that player, and he performed worse than Tommy DeVito. That's not good.
I mean, by some measures, I don't ever want to elevate anything.
Totally EPA.
I don't ever want to elevate anything Tommy DeVito did.
He only beat out Clayton Tune of all quarterbacks who threw passes.
Very weird situation, like you bring up, that maybe a thinly veiled message there. Although I don't know. I think that might be reading too many tea leaves. That said, just like the strife that you've seen, the comments from Reich, doesn't seem like he's super excited. Like, again, I think I mentioned this last week where I said, like, it's not like he's half-assing it where he's just like, I got senioritis, I don't want to be here, I'm not going to try. But it has to be so difficult when like you were put in this bad situation. You wanted a different quarterback. You got Bryce Young put around your neck here, and it's not working. And you're in trouble. Like, it hasn't looked better with Thomas Brown calling plays. It's looked the same, if not worse. And the fact that they're I know it's a road game. I know, but
your
still,
dogs,
like,
you've assembled a team that is assumed by market to be meaningfully worse than the Chicago Bears, led by Tyson Bagent, who was drafted substantially after your 1.01 QB.
Yeah. And this is gonna be a super tough hang, because quietly this Bears defense has become really good against the run. And some of that is, there's been some game states where teams have had to run a little more against the Bears. But I mean, this is a team that was leading most of the time against the Raiders. The Raiders were throwing quite a bit. Like, this has not just been they're stopping the run in a spot where they're way behind and the other team's just running into the line 3 times for most of the fourth quarter. Like, this has been a good run defense. You don't have a lot the running back game anyway. This is kind of like, you're going to need Bryce Young if you want to win this game. So this is a
wild one, because I forgot Tyson Bagent wasn't undrafted. So substantially after, like, as an infinitely after.
And if you're the Bears, are you attempting to try to tie this game? I think that's
shit.
That's like 4D chess for your draft picks.
It sure is.
If I'm joking, but if this game were to organically go to overtime, if I'm the Bears, 100%. Like, that, I know the coaches and the players, but if you're up in the owner's box, like, if you're the GM, like, I'm thinking about making a call to Mr. Eberflus, like, buddy.
Yeah, are we reliving?
The Raiders.
The Raiders
Chargers game. I know it's silly, and
what's the price for tie?
90% joking, but man, if you got to overtime, I'm calling down to the field and be like, you play for a tie right now.
Should I just parlay tie with every other bet I make this week, just in case?
I would suggest that.
Okay.
Tie's usually like 20-1.
Okay. Well, I guess it's kind of focusing a little bit more on the teams instead of the situation. I have zero interest in betting this game.
Rather.
Yeah, I don't. I guess we can give a couple of things credit, or at least I wanted to bring one thing to your attention and see if you had a read on this. Pretty clearly, the Bears have put together a decent offensive line. I think it may not make. They're not going to make any all pros out of these. These guys aren't all pros, but
it's really
they're-
hopeful
yeah,
for
they're
the
good.
future.
Yeah, they're hopeful for the future. They can pass pro. Bajan actually showed some spunk in that game in New Orleans, particularly in the first half. And DJ Moore is the guy. Like you got a couple of players on offense now. The trade for Montez Sweat looks less shitty now that you paid him, but boy, did you pay him a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you can keep Jalen Johnson around apparently, and you fortified your linebacking core with your free agent class last year. What was crazy, Andy? Would you believe that? And I think this was one of the deep dive Discord guys that brought this to my attention. So credit to the DDD, the triple D. But Bears have gone from last to first in EPA per rush defensively from last year to this year. And you remove turnovers. That's a pretty impressive accomplishment. Like you added a couple linebackers and all of a sudden you're the best rush defense in the NFL now. Like that's wild. So hat tip to them for that. Their pass defense is still atrocious. And I mean, if it doesn't look better for Bryce Young in this game, then I think you are literally hitting like 5 alarm. Like this is
there's nothing you can do though. Ty is 70-1 at DraftKings.
Wow, that's a big old
when I said 20-1, I'm thinking go to overtime.
Ends regulation tie. Yeah.
Goes to overtime. Yeah, obviously 20-1 on a tie would be a pretty bad. I think it's a bad price on goes to overtime, but
okay.
We're still parlaying it with stuff. I have no interest. We missed the under here. This is probably a second half under. Like what game state, what score line would be better for the second half under? Bears by like not too many, like Bears by like 7-10.
No, Bears by like.
Well, Bears by
double digits. Yeah,
Bears by like 40 would be great.
Bears by double digits. Yeah. Bears leading by multiple scores. Is the best state for second half under.
It's not a good pass defense, but they have one pretty damn good corner. And yes, Thielen, if you can, this is crazy. If you can bracket Thielen, you can
take
really
Thielen out of the game.
Because they're not going to be able to run. It's crazy. So, and it's nuts. We're all going to watch this game. It's football. Yeah. It's on. We're going to watch it.
Yeah. Some of our friends are going to watch it under influence. Be sure to check that out. I certainly will. I'm sure you saw those notes. All right. Allegedly. All right. So no other real thoughts on this one, but if the Bears are leading at halftime, I can guarantee you we will make a strong case because the Bears can run the ball. And if the Panthers have a lead at halftime, we might make a case for a little over because the Bears can stop the run. So the Panthers aren't going to be able to put this one away on the ground and milk the clock. They're going to have to continue to push.
Teabag could be slinging.
Might be slinging, right?
If you live in Europe, just don't stay up till 3 a.m. for this, guys.
No. Take advantage of a good night's sleep. And
all right, let's move to Germany. This game's already gotten too much time.
The aforementioned Bill Belichick takes on the Indianapolis Colts. This is the biggest adjustment on the board from the preseason look ahead, as we were expecting to see the Patriots favored by 5 points, and now they are 1.5 point dogs to Gardner Minshew. That is how far the team has fallen. And I would normally be objecting and saying, I don't know, man. That's a big adjustment. I can't be involved with the Patriots here. This is definitely not a game I'm interested in laying points with the Colts, but I think fair is probably around a pick 'em and not enough juice here to get involved. Total at 43.5 looks perfectly fine to me. 44 is about my median expected score. Realistically, there's no long tails here as, I think both teams are probably capped in the 20s, low 20s. It's a possibility that one of these two teams just outright no-shows. Patriots are better served by losing. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. I would start tanking for some draft. It's not like they've ever been great at draft picks up high.
Belichick, the GM, has been the worst GM in football in the last 4 years.
They love having a bunch. They love to.
At least he's not trading stuff away, but
he
might as well have. He might as well have be. He might as well have gone Rams YOLO because you're not using his draft capital for good players. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Christian Gonzalez is the exception, I guess. I don't know.
It's been a tough hang with this offense. I know they just haven't solved what the answer is going to be at wide receiver. They have a bunch of wide receiver 2.5/3s. This offense has just been much too inconsistent, and you're going to be, having the injuries that they sustained early in the season on this defense. It just never was going to be a good team. That said, Colts second week traveling across the pond this time. Not going to lay points with Gardner Minshew in a spot like this ever. Yeah. So this is a pass game of all pass games.
It's worth noting Colts are coming off their worst offensive performance of the season.
Yeah.
But partially because they just didn't have to do anything. Like, two ways to read that. Let me ask you about Belichick and the Patriots before we totally move off this one. Where are you on the spectrum of Patriots reporters buzzing about Belichick hot seat?
Seems like horse shit, right?
Yeah, to me it does, but I have no fucking clue.
Yeah, I don't believe any of it.
I mean, I would assume that the rumors or the buzz that other teams would be interested in Belichick is true, which means if you fire him, then you don't get compensated. So why would you fire him? Let him run the team into the ground this year, get a good draft pick, and then trade him for more draft capital would be sort of the obvious answer, right?
Yeah, I don't know what the we got to save the season or what, or hey, this guy's just not the answer.
We're really worried that somebody's going to come pick our pocket for Gerard Mayo.
Maybe that's the only thing that actually. I mean, that's the only thing
that name in coaching circles, Andy.
Maybe they've heard, some chatter that we haven't. That's the only thing that checks out, and that is such a low. That's so.
We want to bring in a defensive coach. Get me Lou Anarumo, Mike McDonald, and Gerard Mayo. That doesn't sound right to me.
I don't know.
I don't think he's a candidate to be snatched. I think he is. If you want to ultimately elevate him to the head coach role after Belichick moves on, and you presumably get draft capital for him, that's fine. But there's no emergency, I don't think, to get him into the role. But
I'll probably have this in teasers, but it's on the low end of my teaser rating for the week for sure. Not excited.
Okay, good deal. Cleveland, Baltimore, big one. I think the handicap here is pretty straightforward. I haven't heard really a good case as to why the Browns are a bet, which is spooking me a little bit.
I have.
Go, please. Go ahead.
But it's based on bad information. As you and I talked, we both sat and watched the Browns game again. Yeah. I talked to Pizzola when I was on the stream on Monday. He'd watched the Browns game again. We're all of the same mind that Deshaun Watson did not look good last week. He played a very, very, very bad defense. Now he's going to likely play the only defense in the league that's on par with theirs. It's going to be a very stark difference in what kind of coverages he faced, what kind of pressure he's up against. And if you watch, there's a tweet, I think it was Ian Hartitz. I don't remember who had it.
Yeah, that's right.
He just had like a 30-second supercut of all the long
15 yards in the air,
over intermediate stuff. Watson there's none of this, the flick you see from some of these big arm quarterbacks.
Watson, yeah.
He is winding up and just getting everything he has, like in slow motion, like in a bad football movie, to try to get these down the field. He is not 100%. He's not even close to right. That is
awful mechanics.
Just kind of a misguided box score. I'm not saying Arizona should have been closer. I'm saying any team of 11, 22 men would have gone out there and probably had a pretty good day against Clayton Tune and that defense last week.
Right. I agree with that.
There couldn't have been even the defense when it's squirrely and decent. There couldn't have been a ton of motivation last week knowing hey, we're starting Clayton Tune. We get to go out there and I guess we have to pitch
an extra bye week. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, no, and we're talking about me. Yeah, how I'd look throwing the ball 35 yards.
Yeah. I will tell you that the even if you really want to key on the deep passes and say, well, he got the ball to Cooper, he got it there, he anticipated, he placed it. Okay. The other stuff that he was doing in the non-5 throws where he went past the sticks. The other stuff he was doing was classic vintage terrible Watson, like real squirrely in the pocket, some scrambles that happen way later than they should have, and a bunch of dump offs, like just check down shit. It was not an inspiring performance whatsoever, and I feel like people who had life-changing money on the Browns last week because they knew Clayton Tune was going to put up the worst performance of the season were probably like, Watson, what are we doing, man? Like, come on. Like, come on, like just give me a clean series here, buddy. Like, it was that type of uncomfortableness I felt like watching it live. And, I don't know. This is a much tougher test. Enough has been said across the NFL content universe about the Ravens defense this week. It's flipping amazing. It's got multiples. There's answers for every question. It's just truly unbelievable. Yeah.
If I'm putting the game plan together for the Ravens defense, if I watch that film, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Like we can pressure this guy into bad throws.
Yeah.
He can't beat our coverage for the most part. Like we're going to be fine. Lamar just needs to go out there and have a half decent day. That's the tough part is the strength on strength, the game plan, the running, keeping Lamar clean. Although every week his sack avoidance is just, he's back. It's like the he's back meme too.
Yeah.
What we saw during that MVP season where he was like prime Russ, prime Vic, where it's like this guy's unsackable. Even if you're spying and you're bringing extra guys and you're bringing unique blitzes, you're doing great things with pressure. It's still such a pain in the ass. And it's still, again, it's a road game.
Yeah. You want to hold on? You want one little statistical anomaly for you? This will be the fourth time that Deshaun Watson has gone up against John Harbaugh. First time, he's only got one of the sample with Mike McDonald, and that was actually a win for the Browns at the end of last season. But he has well below his career average EPA per play against this particular unit.
Was he in that game that stayed under?
Yes.
Oh God.
Yes. I can't believe you remember that.
I very much. It was Baltimore, like 41-7. 41-7.
Sure. That sounds right, actually. And then the total was like 51.
Yeah.
And there was a chance late, or the 7 points they scored literally, I think, was like true garbage time, if I remember right. That was, of course, the Ravens, the high point of any franchise team rating I've ever had. That was just an unbeatable machine of a team. But his EPA per play that day, minus 0.35. That's not good.
Every 3 plays is a point for the other team.
The rematch, which was week 2 the following year, he was minus 0.17 EPA per play in that one. Another convincing loss. So I guess there's just not really that much there that says Watson's got it against this defense.
Well, no, and that was
particularly in his current form. So.
That was Watson. That was in good form. That was this guy's ceiling is a top 5 quarterback in this league. He's looking good. We just need to put it all together down here in Houston. So we both played the Ravens.
One sidebar. So let's talk about Lamar, because people in the comments are bringing up Lamar MVP combo. Is he in the group of 6? Absolutely. There's no question. Is he the likely winner or favorite at any point this year? Probably not. His numbers are pretty pedestrian so far, which is kind of interesting. Lamar Jackson so far has 5 seasons in the books, including his rookie year where he only started the last half of the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Among these 6 seasons, including this year, what would you guess his lowest EPA per play is? Or, where would you guess this season ranks in EPA per play among the 6?
This is probably like his 3rd best year.
Second to last.
Really?
So far this
somewhere
year,
in the middle, right? Well, it was a tough hang the first couple weeks when we were starting to, hey, I'm Todd, hey, I'm Lamar, we're getting to know each other. First couple dates. It was like, hey, maybe we don't have a second date. And then it got there. And that's the thing too. The turnovers. Turnovers are very, very noisy in EPA. But
how about success rate?
That's because they're massive in game state,
Similar issues with success rate. Basically, just as a passer, as a passer, his EPA per play is his second worst. The only worst season he had was his rookie year. His EPA as a passer in 2019, by the way, was 0.35 per play. So far this year, he is 0.038. So well off his passing numbers from 2019. In fact, in order, EPA per play, this might blow your mind out a little bit. In order, EPA per play, passing, 2019 was his best. 2020 was his second best. 2021 was his third best. 2022 was his fourth. And this is his fifth. So don't understand really what's going on there.
Yeah.
Could be just league-wide defense. I think that's more likely than he's regressing, but it's not a good trend. All that said,
if you throw out some of the early stuff, like he's a top 12 quarterback in EPA per play. If you just look at like the last 4 or 5 weeks, it's better. It has gotten better. The fumbles. I should do the one where we take out turnovers or exclude plays with turnovers. That said, I don't love him for MVP. It's just so hard for him to leapfrog all those guys because he won't have the 5,000 yard season. He won't have 45 touchdowns. He's going to need like 15 rushing touchdowns and some big games to actually get there. He's important, but to truly leapfrog all those guys, Burrow's right there with him too now. I do like him and again, this is such a dumb market to even put $1 in because we've found out through, you've talked to people, I've talked to somebody else who talked to voters. There is a general, feeling like nobody likes comeback player of the year. Nobody wants to vote for it. And there are some people that actually like, hey, we have an easy one. Like, I don't have to think about this. Give it to the guy who died on the field. This is super easy. Like, that's what sucks about this. But like Lamar having a really good year, this would be such a good miscongeniality award for him. He missed a bunch of time last year. He comes back, they win the division. Like, if you can't bring yourself to give him like a top 2 or 3 MVP vote, I'm putting him right back in comeback player of the year. I hate it so much.
The Triple D guys just fired up for this conversation. We're gonna go way into it later. Just hold on.
Yeah, wait till we get Rodgers.
wait till we get to the Bills game, guys. Just for completeness sake, I'm looking at a cumulative. I'm looking at the grouped EPA per play for passes only for those seasons. So this is presumably excludes the fumbles where he is botching handoffs, but maybe not. Maybe they're in there, but who knows? All right. The end of the story is I think the Ravens do put on a pretty decent showing here against Cleveland. Another 28-3 type of win wouldn't shock me. And I think we come out of this week and people, a week where people didn't see Pat Mahomes, they didn't see Tua. They're not going to see Josh Allen until Monday night. There's a decent chance Lamar gets MVP, a lot of MVP buzz Monday morning. There's a decent chance everybody has, Baltimore power rated number 1 with the bullet next week. Like, I think that's in the realm possibilities.
I have him number 1 right now.
Yeah. But not like by margin.
No.
Yeah, no. There's a chance that it's
top
consensus.
4 is tight now.
Yeah, it's a chance it's consensus, and it's just there's a gap. How big is the gap? Is this the 2019 Ravens all over again? Like, there's a decent chance that that's the narrative on Monday, and I'm not there yet with this team. I just think that they're the kind of team that can do what they did last week to decent, but not but flawed teams. Like, if they're up against a flawed team, I think you're gonna feel it. And I don't know if that's going to be the case next week against Cincinnati on Thursday Night Football. So very intrigued to see how that game ultimately gets lined.
That one's massive. A short week against another 2 weeks in a row. So in like 5 days, you're going to play 2 of the best defensive coordinators in the league.
Yeah.
You're going to play. You're
welcome
one of those. One of those you're going to have to play a really good quarterback.
Yeah.
We'll see. Let's get to that game. Let's get to Houston, Cincy.
You know what is funny? You're right. These 2 games and then the one with that. These are the 3 best defensive coordinators in the league, probably.
Yeah.
And they're all kind of round robining right now. That's cool. I will also say that's kind of funny. There is this is total sidebar, and then let's move on. Ready? There was a weird little we play you play them, they play us. That sometimes helps you sort out like relative strength of teams between Seattle, Cleveland, Baltimore, and Arizona, right? Like they
Yeah.
all boom, 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 played each other, right, in a row. Like we saw Cleveland against Seattle, we saw Cleveland against Arizona, we saw Baltimore against Seattle, we saw Baltimore against Arizona. Yeah, you saw it all, but it's actually all useless because the quarterbacks weren't the same anywhere.
No.
Right, you had
That's
Dobbs
the
and then
conversation we had at the beginning of the year, or at the beginning of the podcast.
Yes, it's hilarious.
Like a
that
lot
it's
of
all
that's dead data.
Yes, it's just, well, what do we do with? Yeah, okay, well, they were this market said this for this, but the quarterback changed, and was that because they are upgraded down, or is that the quarterback? Yeah, it's just it's hysterical that we had this set up where you could potentially get a fair, like little origin plot. You knew exactly where to put Cleveland, Baltimore, and Seattle, and now we're just like, I don't know where the fuck they go. All right, so moving on.
Houston, Cincinnati. I would strongly, if you made me bet this right now, and I'm dangerously close to this anyway, if Jamar Chase misses this game and Higgins is interested, why did I say interested? Limited?
Yeah.
Those aren't even close. Or out? 6.5 is a lot. I don't care how good Joe Burrow's playing. This isn't a great defense. We saw that last week. That is a big problem for the Cincinnati offense, and that's a whole lot of points to be laying at home against a team that can score. It's it's not a team that's going to run the ball well, but I love a team that self-scouts and has figured it out. And that's D'Amico Ryan's one of the guys I wanted to talk about, where it's like, fuck it, he listened to the kid. They put the game plan together. They said he thinks he's ready to throw more. We can't run the ball all that well anyway. Some of those are probably wasted plays. I love a team that self-scouts and just said, fuck it, let's throw the ball a bunch. We got all these young receivers. We got a quarterback who has all the confidence in the world. Like, this is going to come down to, are the Bengals going to put up big numbers on offense? Because I love Anarumo. I don't think this defense is all that great at times. It's a tough one to play. It's a tough one because they make good adjustments. But if you're able to throw the ball well, like the Texans have been, they can stay in this game. But I mean, if Chase and Higgins and everything is fine, if everybody goes, obviously it's a mismatch here at home. It's a very good team right now. Burrow's got that swag back. Kind of an awkward, like he has all. I had a buddy like this who, my God, he could have had any girl in the world when we went out if we'd have just like taped his mouth shut, just like oozed confidence, and then said the stupidest shit. Burrow's kind of a shitty interview. Like when he talks, it's like, oh, you're awkward. I don't like you anymore. I'm going to turn the sound off. But Burrow's got the swag. Yeah, and that's the other thing too. This is the main reason. I have no idea. I have no idea what they're doing. If these are all actual injuries, or if they just wanted to rest 1 million people and they needed to put names and body parts together. Like I have no interest right now with this Wednesday report. I need to get a lot more information on the Texans and try to be ahead of the market on the Chase and Higgins stuff. So for now, I'm not betting this. This total has started to tick down, I believe.
Yes. Well, finally, it had a little bit of a
it was going up.
Move.
Yeah.
The underlying thought process here is there is a pretty decent home road split for the Texans offense and for Stroud. He's definitely a guy that looks more comfortable at home. He's definitely a guy that looks more comfortable against defenses that are a little one-dimensional also. And if Lou Anarumo can frustrate the kid, much like McDonald did in week 1, I won't be shocked. I think you get a little bit of a local high right now on this Texans offense after as good as they looked last week. And the injury report does scare me for the Texans. Problem is there's a bunch of defenders on there. And that may ultimately make this easier for the Bengals. Decent chance that the Bengals, if they have a lead in this game, they can put this one away, much like they did against the Bills, where it's just a lot of just long, successful drives in the second half, as opposed to lots of points scored. So I played the under here. I think it's a little bit stronger angle than too many points for the Bengals. If ultimately Chase goes, will he get his full complement of snaps? Probably not. I think they'd like to get him right for next week would be my guess. Like there may be some decision making by the Bengals. The Bengals may make some decisions here where they're like, okay, well, let's get in, get out with a clean win as opposed to leave dead bodies on the field, guys.
Well, that's the thing. Get a big first half lead, and then don't make Chase play 40 snaps in the second half.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Silly
exactly.
like that. You don't need that in your life. You're looking long term at this point. So
I played some under 47.5. Second half unders probably in play depending on game state. Ultimately, I guess I want to bring up one thing. A lot of people kind of giving DeMeco Ryan some flowers for the Texans overachieving so far this year. And he's kind of in the coach of the year race, coach of the year mix, I guess.
He's like third or fourth favorite, man.
Yeah. Number one, it's pretty clearly mostly Stroud getting them to overachieving.
I mean, coaches coach players.
Do you coaches coach players? Do you? It would be kind of wild. It would just be like a weird, like anomalous circumstance if he does win coach of the year because the Texans overachieve because it was Stroud. And he was vocally banging the table to use pick number 2 on Will Anderson, not Stroud, right? And he was so outspoken about it that they traded away valuable future draft capital to get Will Anderson, who's not moving the needle for me at all so far. And the owner's just like, take the good kid, take the kid that's good at quarterback. We need a quarterback,
and that's where I think it's fucking with your head a little, Drew. And I think you're a little off base here because we are, Reich wanted the right guy, and now we're all dogging on him because that's not what happened to him, and that wasn't 100% his fault. Whereas DeMeco Ryans wanted to do the wrong thing, and they still did the wrong stuff. Yeah. But he still ended up with a better quarterback, and like you said, he's getting his flowers. But at the same time, it's hard to say that. It's hard to say that like Stroud lands somewhere else and he's just instantly successful. Like it's still one big system between the coaches, the offensive staff, even down to the guy who's making his lunch. Everything matters. So it's all the little things that matter. And sometimes it's just like, hey, we got all the shitty people out of this building. It's like nobody's talking about it because the Redskins Commanders football team is the en vogue one to talk about, or maybe the Raiders now. But like the Texans had a lot of people in the building that probably were bad for culture.
Oh yeah,
there is a bit of a culture change down there.
Okay.
But well, I mean, obviously you got to give Stroud credit, but I don't.
It's just funny because
I don't think Ryan should win Coach of the Year though.
Yeah, it's just funny because he's got a bottom 10 defense. He's the defensive guy. Yeah, he's bringing in Bobby Slowick. Slowick is run passing more than anyone else in the league. And if you didn't happen to luck into Stroud, which you didn't want, then you would not be even in remote consideration here. And he's also benefiting from a pretty easy schedule. All that said, I think the Bengals do get this one home. I think the total is an underplay, and I think anything better than 47 is a bet to the under. So moving on. San Fran at Jacksonville.
Last quick thing too, like if there is a strength, even losing the safeties, the Bengals have been better against the pass. Like they can be run against. It's not a great matchup in that sense. Like if they have a little bit of a strength, it has been against the passing game. So it's kind of strength on strength, weakness on weakness when the Bengals defense is out on the field. In the end, it's probably just going to be a pass for me.
Okay. All right.
I don't diss Bryce Young. I have a Bryce Young Rookie of the Year ticket. It is dead.
Okay.
Maybe that Rookie of the Year ticket would come back next year.
It died a quick death in 1 week.
1 week.
And funny enough, it wasn't the week where Stroud and Young played each other. It was the week after. It's wild how that works.
They might only win one game. San Francisco, Jacksonville. Both off the bye.
Game of the week.
Very good game. This is the best noon game for sure. Just because the Baltimore one's going to be boring. 42-0 Baltimore. I don't have a read on this.
That makes two.
It is a West Coast team traveling for an early game East, but at the same time, it's not like a real one because you didn't play a game last week. You had time off. I kind of want to spend this time talking about, well, we'll get to it in Detroit, but the bye week is kind of a goofy thing.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of comparisons to teams coming off the bye compared to teams coming off Thursday. And I think the biggest difference is one of the stupidest things you see on social is like, oh my God, this guy was at like the NBA game for his local, the team that plays in his market. Like, what is he doing? Why isn't he prepping for the football game? Yeah, they have lives and stuff, but bye week is an off week, man. You're on vacation, you're with the family, you're not doing football stuff for the most part. So bye weeks can get a little goofy. I think a lot of it comes down to a coach who's able to rein it all in again on Monday and get everyone ready. Hasn't been the best injury reports for the Niners, but some of this was expected. I guess this comes down to how you feel about the Jaguars defense this week coming off the bye, facing should be an almost fully healthy Niners team now, finally. They kind of need this. Both teams need this one bad. Every week everyone does, but boy, the Niners need this one.
Yeah, I thought super hard about this game for a couple of days. I looked for an angle in a bunch of different ways. I ultimately landed on kind of regardless of game state. I thought there was a decent chance we see points here. And the under has been getting bet all day. So I got a terrible number. Yeah, I think I'm in at 46 or 46 and a half, and it's down to 45 most places. That looks like weather betting to me, which is my least favorite way to lose an over. Is like, oh, you didn't know there was going to be 20-mile-an-hour winds, you fucking idiot. No, I didn't. So I looked at the weather too. I thought I had a decent read on that, but no, apparently in Jacksonville, Florida in the month of November, we need to be very keenly aware of the weather conditions. But yeah, so there could be some weather here that could be impacting things. I will say this though, if it is a neutral weather game, or at least winds not are over 20-mile-an-hour threshold, I think this does have a chance to be a pretty high scoring affair, because I look at this Niners offense is real. I think this Niners offense is, even in losses and not covers, like the offense is still performing well. Underlying statistics that say that this offense is still going to move the ball at a very healthy clip. Shanahan is an extremely smart offensive coordinator, one of the best in the game, doesn't have clear tendencies you can prepare for. And I do think that there's a decent chance that there is some regression to the preseason expectation of what this Jags defense was going to be. The Jags defense have gotten by in a lot of ways, playing against some bad quarterbacks and quarterbacks in bad conditions. I mean, the defeat of Josh Allen's Buffalo Bills, they spotted him a whole half of football. Like, it was pretty clear that Bills weren't ready to play the first half there. So.
Yeah, the London game threw that all to hell.
Yeah, and I do think that the Jags defense is well coached. I think they have really good secondary for sure, but it's not like the elite type of defense that I think can truly give the Niners trouble like the Browns did when the Browns were at home. So I think this is a pretty clear softer spot for this Niners offense in terms of finding some success here. I like the fact that you have, potentially reintegrating some pieces, although I don't have a strong read whether Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel will play. But as long as Ayuk is going, I think he's a pretty important piece with CMC and George Kittle and Brock Purdy now, 3 weeks removed from the concussion against the Vikings. So I think the Niners are going to get into the 20s here pretty comfortably, maybe even flirt with 30. And I think if the Jags are in comeback mode, then they can score enough to threaten this. The best of the Niners defense is kind of disrupting you with the pass rush that helps hide some of their weaknesses at corner. And people are beating that this year by getting the ball out of their hands quickly. And Trevor Lawrence is sort of mastering that this year. I think if you had to say, if you gave me EPA numbers and ranks for the Jags offense and defense, and you say, well, what happens from here, man? Well, I would say the defense probably comes back to earth a little bit. And I think the offense continues to build and grow and get closer to what we saw at the end of last season in terms of production. And so kind of combining those two, expecting some points in this game, I think is reasonable. And, hopefully the weather doesn't F that up. And by the way, if the Jags are playing a great game and they're winning, like, man, remember that Colts game? Remember that Bills game? Remember, they seem to. Remember that Saints game? Like, they really, really, really let teams come back through the back door with points. And I don't think this is going to be a runaway 20-10 win against like they got against the Steelers. This is much more like if you have a lead, you likely allow points. Jags have been decent chance the Jags are a little rusty here too, right?
I don't understand. I don't think they have a good pass rush. Just watching games, looking at the grades, seeing who they put out there, the scheme. I don't think they have the pass rush to truly like bother Purdy and disrupt him. They have good coverage, but this is just the ultimate offense we can beat any coverage because we have schemes that take away all the things you do. And if you don't have the pass rush to go with your good coverage, we have the Yak Kings. And we're just gonna beat you underneath if need be. We're gonna beat you, this way, that way. We're gonna beat you with our running game. Like if the pass rush isn't there, the Niners can score quite a bit here.
Yo, I dig that. Okay. So ultimately, I think Niners probably win. Decent, non-zero chance the Jags win. This would be kind of gravy more than like super important for any kind of Jags futures you have if you have them with me. The handicap on why the Jags were a bet preseason is they were going to get 6 games against rookie quarterbacks. Well, that still looks likely.
Yeah.
And by the way, that sets them apart among the other AFC contenders in my mind. And they got one win against the Bills. They didn't get the win against the Chiefs, unfortunately. And if they can show up in a couple weeks and beat some of the other contending teams, then who knows? Maybe they get the 1 seed. But I think the Jags are pretty clearly pointed at the 3. Do you agree with that? Chiefs and Ravens are almost 50% chances, 1, 2 in some order.
Yeah, I'd have to go look. I should run my thing through that. I can't think of the guy's name now. The guy in the Discord that has the cool tool.
Steven?
No, someone tell me. Christopher Davis. Yes, his tool. I like that because I'll tweak my numbers a little, because I have some ranges for some teams and see how it affects things. But yeah, 3 seed seems like a heavy favorite.
Okay. And you know what that would mean, right? Winner of the AFC East gets the 4. That's kind of feels right?
It's kind of wild. It's been even the Patriots not being good, it's been such a weird competitive division, which is crazy since you say like, hey, guess what? The Patriots are gonna have no wide receivers. Aaron Rodgers goes down week 1, and like Miami never beats a good team. It's still gonna be a crazy tough division.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah. And every important Bills defender gets hurt before week 4.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Vikes hosting your presumptive NFC South champions. These teams.
Scene of the crime.
If we forward cast, both of these teams are projected to be playoff teams currently, even with Derek Carr and Josh Dobbs. I know that there's going to be 2 really bad teams that get into the NFC playoffs. Minnesota has a decent chance.
It might be these 2.
It might. Well, I really do think the Saints have a decent chance of winning this division now. Oh, okay. Saints -2.5. It's hard to divorce yourself from all the hullabaloo and excitement we saw, but getting a week to prepare with a good defense, knowing you're playing Josh Dobbs, you got to see him play with other teams. You got to see him preseason. You got to see him with the Cardinals. You kind of understand what's going to happen. That said, this is a much better offensive game planning, coaching staff than what he had in Arizona, probably what he had in Cleveland. I'm really starting to fall in love with Kevin O'Connell. I think he's a really, really good coach. It's just kind of a tough situation because Kirk was having such a good year. It's hard to lay it with the Saints ever. But if you had to, this feels like such a letdown game for the Vikings. Not only just like from a narrative standpoint, but like getting to game plan for a true backup who hasn't been here yet.
Yeah, there is film on Dobbs.
Just kind of knowing like this is what we're gonna get from this guy. It's not Cousins. You have no Jefferson. You probably have no Osborne. Basically, like we have seen a team that hasn't been able to run the ball. We have to take away their tight end and make sure Dobbs doesn't have some crazy 4th down scrambles.
Yeah. Let Lattimore wipe Addison off the face of the earth. We bracket. This is a pretty easy assignment for the D coordinators, is what you're saying.
Yeah, Addison. It's crazy that you can say like Addison's what we worry about with put Lattimore on that, and it doesn't leave a lot at the wide receiver position. You're gonna get home on him. You're gonna get this. You should be able to get some pass rush here. I'm close to laying it with the Saints, and I hate that.
Okay, so question for you. It is, by the way, it is hilarious that Quentin Johnson, the Chargers wide receiver who was drafted ahead of him. Yeah. It's funny to me that Johnson is not ready for a wide receiver 3 role in LA, and Addison stepped into a wide receiver 1 role like it was no problem. That's pretty unbelievable. Yeah.
These huge friggin' dudes who show marginal 40 times, but it's like, oh, he's big and physical. Like they're not working out in this. Like, you probably should just stop drafting them. Like he's not a very clean route runner, obviously. Addison caught on fast. He did.
So do you know if Darisaw? Do you know what the deal is there?
I was leaning in, but
do you know why he missed last week? Did you see that coming?
I thought it was was it back? What was his deal?
I don't know. Caught me by surprise. No notes on that? No
read? Hawkinson was the rib injury. Hopefully Hawkinson is all right. Man, you could be down a lot. Yeah, it was just a weird game day scratch. Groin?
Okay.
That matters too, obviously, a lot.
Yeah, surely. So here's the other question for you, and this one's maybe more important. Why hadn't this moved yet? Why hadn't this 3?
Because it's the Saints.
I know, but
have you seen a lot of moves towards the Saints this year in the markets?
Yeah. Do you remember the
early
Colts game?
But it's
remember the Colts game?
But
remember the Jags game? The Saints got bet. The Saints got bet 2 weeks big time. Big boy money on the Saints 2 weeks in a row. Yeah. They didn't get bet last week. Oh no, they did get bet last week. Well, it was early though, and that was probably wrong.
Yeah,
I was with them, and we were wrong. I don't know. I mean, I think the right way to bet the Saints last week wasn't laying points. It was obviously betting the NFC South. That went like from 60% likely to like 85% likely overnight, which is pretty cool. I think the maybe my percentage is high. I don't know. I'm just quoting off top of my head.
You get a little notebook. You're just putting percentages next year. I can just make it up whatever number sounds good.
Andy, I have the most sound NFC South position in the country. All right.
I made the same argument like in week 2 or 3 and took like a plus 150 on him. So I couldn't even do it. I'm like, I'm already knee deep in Saints here. I don't want any more. I'm fine with what I have. So I'm there with you. I'd like my 2 positions have accrued equity, Saints and Ravens to win their divisions.
They're very sound. Very sound.
Very sound.
Don't know that I for sure have the most sound in the world, but definitely the country. I don't have a read on this game. I mean, if I had to play it, I would play the Saints. But the fact that it hasn't moved has me a little spooked. I'll be honest with you, because there's really no reason I can think of to, to wonder why anyone is backstopping Minnesota at a cheap 2.5. You know what I mean? Like, if you knew that there was serious market support here for New Orleans, you just wait and let it get to 3 and take the 3. But the
injury report for the Saints was pretty freaking clean.
Yeah,
it was a couple of older guys rested, and like Kendre Miller, who doesn't matter, didn't practice. Like, he's second, third running back. Isaiah Foskey didn't practice with a quad injury. And then that was pretty much it. And anyone else who was on the injury report practices, whereas, Minnesota saw Osborne still out with the concussion, Darisaw with the groin, Hawkinson. If Hawkinson is limited with a rib injury, my God, because even the backup, Johnny Munt, has a knee thing.
I can't think of any reason to back the Vikings here, and that's a little spooky. maybe I ultimately get involved. I might get involved in the Saints.
Sometimes the market is just it's Wednesday still, Drew.
Yeah, no, I want to see. I'm gonna observe the injury report for the Vikings tomorrow and get a gauge on what was vet restish and what was real.
This is the other thing too, and I'm not saying I agree with this prop. I'd have to look at kind of where we're at with it. 2-1 for anytime touchdown on Taysom, but he brings up a good point about like Taysom is incredibly efficient in the plays they put him on the field for. Like he's a nice little wrinkle. As much as we hated the what are we doing? Why is he still a quarterback? I love it when he's out for passes too. He's dangerous with the ball in his hands. Like Taysom is kind of a stupid X factor that matters against a bad defense.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on. Green Bay at Pitt. I got New Orleans circled. I might play. Maybe I'll just play them in contests. I guess maybe a couple alt entries. I'll just grab New Orleans instead of some of the.
I'm just kind of waiting for
popular. New Orleans is probably gonna be like 70% pick in the contest. Anyway.
Houston and New Orleans. I kind of wanted to see Thursday injury reports.
Okay, all right. Green Bay plays Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, 1 p.m. The Green Bay Packers are garnering next to no market support. Unlike people who were willing to backstop Minnesota at 2.5, we've seen this move. I guess there was some nibbles at 3.5, but it's 3.5 even right now. It's circa 3.5 even. -101 offshore. Pittsburgh is interesting in a lot of ways because their early season offense was so bad and not even really noisy, but just bad. That like their EPA stuff still says this is a bad offense, but it also is trending up. Like it's trending up. It's not, the points aren't really showing up there. The yards per play aren't really showing up there, but the efficiency is ticking up so slowly. Some of that likely due to Deontay Johnson being back. Some of that likely due to just figuring out who your best players are on the offensive line and putting them there. There's a lot less. Some of their scoring early in the season was defensive scoring, and now it's all offensive, and that's kind of making some of the difference, I guess, or at least why the offensive efficiency looks like it's ticking up. And meanwhile, they banked a bunch of wins. Rather than, I don't have a position on this game. I think 3 is fine. I think laying the Steelers as favorites is always a little weird because they seem to play better as dogs for some bizarre reason. But I would like your opinion, Andy, on if the Steelers are a sleeping threat in the AFC playoff picture. Maybe not to win the division, but to get the 5 seed. Are they potentially a top wild card team if they continue to carry on this progression offensively while staying healthy defensively? Or is this a team that we have belly laughs about? How in the world did they get 5 wins when they're like 5-12?
Yeah, I think it's somewhere in between. I think this is a team that ends up with around a 500 record because while you're correct, 100% this offense is not as hapless, shitty, horrific, laughable as it was to start the year. Kenny Pickett is like a middle of the pack quarterback at times. If he's not turning the ball over and they've put together these game plans that work for him, it hasn't been bad. You need to win this game if you're the Steelers. This is a bad team you're playing right now. They have had defensive injuries. Love is not getting it. You have to win this game at home. Like that said, I seriously hate laying points with the Steelers team because I think this offense is about capped. Like you're saying this progression, I think we've hit.
You see the plateau coming.
Yeah, I think we're about as good as this offense is.
You see the Matt Canada tundra in the distance. Okay.
I don't see it continuing to like, this offense is just going to keep getting better by incremental gains for the rest of the season. This is probably about, this is it. And then, and again, if you're at the beginning of the season, if you're a Steelers fan, backer, watcher of football, you probably got to be pretty happy with where they're at right now because it hasn't been atrocious now. Yeah. So Steelers are about where they're at. They're gonna lose to the good teams. Yeah. If they want to beat the good teams, they're probably going to need some of that early season magic where they score on defense or a defense just shows out and causes a bunch of turnovers. Yeah. But the offense isn't going to carry them past good teams.
Yeah. You know what? I agree with that. That's fair. And I think everything you said about the Packers is right. Like this is this is as untrustworthy a team as they get. They're probably in like the 26, 7, 8 range in terms of team rating overall right now because Love is this bad. Love is there. He looks unsalvageable to me. And Aaron Jones is kind of the only positive thing I can even say about that offense, which is, something. Real quick on final thought on Steelers here. Obviously, I'm an agenda-ridden, untrustworthy asshole when it comes to Mike Tomlin, right? I bet him Coach of the Year this year everywhere I could find it. This would be a hell of a windfall if he actually does win. They have national media members writing him in as number one through half the year, which kind of caught me by surprise this week with midseason columns rolling out. I'll be honest with you, but he's in the conversation. The handicapping community, we tend to wink, wink, nod, nod, sarcastic as hell, Tomlin voodoo comment this stuff, right? And done it for a while. And it has served for me, the Tomlin voodoo kind of conversation has served for me as a placeholder for, I could never really tell you what it was he was doing that like led to team success. Like I couldn't. And when you don't have anything you can point to, you tend to just assume, well, it's either he's just getting his guys rah fired up and he's like Pete Carroll type of like locker room, like, like get these guys to play hard for you. Or it is voodoo, truly. Like there's some external factor that I can't quantify here. There was a crack. He let out a little bit of information this last week, and I'm starting to think I'm starting to figure it out, I believe. And it comes back to our conversation at the beginning about tendencies, I believe. He is notoriously very, very, what's the right word? Like he treats his interactions with the media in a way where you come away thinking, I don't know that guy has anything. Like I don't get it. Like I'm not sure what his plan was. He didn't let out any secrets, any strategy, nothing, right? Most of the time when he's talking, he talked about the Tennessee game and let out a little, somebody asked him like, why was Joey Porter Jr., you've been playing him on one side. In that game, you started having him shadow DeAndre Hopkins. And he let out that Hopkins, they move him to the side of the field away from their screen passing game. And by putting Porter on Hopkins, that kept him out of harm's way in terms of having to make tackles. Because it's better run fits for us if our other cornerbacks and safeties are occupying that space, if we know that opposite Hopkins is going to be the screen pass, right? And it was like, aha, like that is high level football knower shit. Like that's very, very cool. You know your personnel well enough, and their tendencies well enough to make a specific change in your plan with your personnel to help them all succeed better.
I'm not actually impressed by this.
You're not.
This feels like a minimum. This feels like a minimum. I get it that like every coach should be doing that, right? Like that is also
plenty of them don't.
I think they all do. I think they all do little things like this every week. You just don't hear about them. And I think you're way too deep in your head on this Tomlin thing. I don't think he has a shot in hell. I'd price it at 40-1 right now.
Okay.
Like it just there's too many good narratives ahead of him. Like it just he won 9 games last year, and I know he's never won it, but like he's gonna have to have a really good end of the season, and it ends at Baltimore. Like basically you gotta parlay a bunch of wins to get there. I don't think he can hop Ryan's and
defensive mastermind analytics darling Brandon Staley didn't know how to use JC Jackson. Right. I don't actually think it is like a guarantee that these coaches know how to use their personnel correctly at all.
Well, I don't think J.C. Jackson was super. I don't think anyone's excied to have him on a team right now.
Well, not now, but in year one, they were utilizing him away from his strengths.
I'm not buying the Tomlin stuff at all.
Okay,
they're going to win the same amount of games last year.
Hey, man, tune in next week to hear my narrative, my story about Tomlin meeting the bare minimum of coaching that makes it sound like he really knows what he's doing, and it's his he is responsible for the success.
It's impressive that when teams do things and it works out. But yeah, JC Jackson is a shitty. I hate
no. They signed JC Jackson and immediately utilized him in exactly the opposite way that Bill Belichick.
I know, but there's so many things that we don't know what's going on. I think.
Okay.
In cases
That's
like
fine.
that, where it's
That's
like
fine.
they really thought they saw something that this is how we're going to use them. It's going to be even better, and it just shit doesn't work out. You know how that goes.
Okay.
I know. I love Tomlin. I just man, the Lions winning the division is just such a trump fucking card on this one. And I get what you're saying, but I read a bunch of those midseason award articles. I read them every year. Last year, there was people talking about. We were people doing it. There were people talking Pete Carroll, like coach of the year. Like you had, because you don't want to write the article and just list the chalk. Like that's a shitty article for sure. I think he should get. Some recognition. But man, it's going to be hard to pass Ryan, McDaniel, and Campbell.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll find some more examples for you about why Tomlin's special, and we'll recount him every week.
I like him. No, I like him a lot, though. I love him.
Every time the Steelers lose, we're just going to do what did Matt Canada do wrong, and every time the Steelers win, it'll be look at this little wrinkle that Tomlin thought about. That'll be the rest of the 2023 season.
They didn't even let JC Jackson go to Germany.
He's off the reservation. He's off the reservation now. Now he is. But this was like before his injury, like in the immediate kind of afterglow of signing that guy to big money. They put him in a system that was specifically against his strengths. Anyway, plenty of examples from Brandon Staley doing this shit with other players too, if you want me to go.
That's a whole other discussion. Why can't Brandon Staley put together a good defense?
Brandon Staley didn't realize that his most important player after Justin Herbert last year was Mike Williams, and they shouldn't be fucking playing in a game that doesn't mean anything.
I think that's why Tomlin
was that example.
So like what your example of Tomlin doing something correct and making things work, I think that's not like we should give this guy an award. It's hey, we should let this guy coach for 20 years. Those are the things you do. Those are the things you do to keep this awesome, very job that everybody wants for 2 freaking decades. It's been a while now. I mean, when did Cowher retire? Like, man, when we graduated
2006, 7?
Yeah, I mean, it was
I think it was 6 or 7. He won in 2005 and then he retired shortly after.
Yep. I think he might have done right after that. So all right.
Tomlin won his Super Bowl in 2008. I want to say.
We're not exactly speeding through today, are we? We're not even on the second page.
I have nothing on basically the rest of the
There's
game,
a bunch of games.
Carry on.
There's a bunch of games I don't have a strong take on. So
Tennessee, one of those.
Tennessee and Tampa being one of them. Tampa's defense, a little injury here, little injury there. Didn't look so hot last week. And Vrabel's another one where I kind of believe in. He's a sneaky good coach, and I'm glad they made the call to go.
Hey, he made the right. We're giving out flowers. He made the right call to keep Will Levis in as starter.
To somebody made the comment like, there's so many shitty coaches that make bad decisions. Like half the league is shitty coaches, and that's why they're not going to have a job in 2 years. Like that's why we have 6 or 7 new coaches every year. But like the fact that I think there are a lot of coaches that would have gone back to Tannehill.
Oh yeah, sure. I think in another year, Vrabel would have, but Vrabel's got his eyes open for some reason this year.
Yeah, this is the right decision. You're not always going to have the 4 touchdown game where all the deep passes are just falling. Where they, there's a couple of them. I think Solak had a video on the one. I'm sure it was him where it's like, hey, this isn't where you want this ball, and Hopkins clearly offensively interferes, but it's still a really nice throw. Mm-hmm. And, we're not going to see that, but the fact that Levis showed the level of confidence to just start whipping those right off the bat. I don't know if it's confidence or DGAF, but I like him quite a bit. And if everybody's healthy, it's kind of a fun offense. It has opened up the running game a little. Derrick Henry, obviously it was a good matchup for him, but he's looked pretty decent. They lost to the Steelers, but what are you going to do? You're up against one of the greatest coaches of all time in that spot.
Yeah.
Steelers played a really good game that game though too. Like
Yes.
that was that was home. It was a short week. What are you going to do? And at the end of that game, I believe it was end zone interception. Like
that was his only pick so far.
Yeah, Will Levis looked very composed on that last drive. Total, yeah, I was wondering about this total, if you'd seen any movement on this. Baker, semi-lively at times. I don't want to bet this game because I don't have a strong read on what we're going to get week from week from Baker Mayfield.
For what it's worth, don't play Nick Folk field goals overs because the Buccaneers are good at taking out kickers. See what they did to Fairbairn last week? I actually didn't see where the play got hurt, but he got knocked out of the game. The interesting point or question by Sam: any reason why rookie quarterbacks historically cook Bowles defenses? Danny Dimes, Pickett, Stroud, etc. in the sample. I do think there's a reason. Todd Bowles is sort of the quintessential. He's the quintessential example of a coach coordinator who has one pitch, one speed. There are no tendency, there's no like, and you can say, well, how could a coach who has one pitch, one speed, how do they win a Super Bowl against Pat Mahomes? Well, they had a very, very healthy defense with some elite talent. And so, yeah, they absolutely were able to throw that one pitch, one speed at 105 miles an hour. And it was the difference in that playoff run. When you are a little deficient in talent because of injuries and or just player regression, and you have a team that is preparing their rookie quarterback and they literally know, like, okay, sit him down, here's what's coming, we're going to put in packages for you to deal with this, these are the packages, here's your hot reads, short stuff, get the ball out of your hands. Like, I honestly think that coaches and offensive coordinators with young quarterbacks likely dumb down their game plan going up against the Bucs because it's like they know this and this will work. They don't put anything in there that's like, okay, well, we're going to need 3.5 seconds for this play to mature down the field, right? Like they put in stuff that will succeed.
It's somebody brought this up when we were talking Belichick earlier. He said 80% of teams just beat themselves. And
sure.
And you do see that against like Bulls. Like, hey, let's not beat ourselves. Let's not throw in anything that like we're going to cause the crippling mistake against a defense that is, I don't know, opportunistic, gets used too much. But like if you just run what works, not the great plays, but the good plays, you seem to be able to move the ball. We saw it last week. This defense looked pretty beleaguered at times. I'm not excited about laying it with a quarterback who's in his third game on the road. Therefore, I pass.
Okay.
Because I don't think I can make a strong case for the Bucs. Other than Evans is looking a little better, and the secondary is, still not great. Pass rush is good though. Like if Baker's bothered heavily, Titans win, I guess.
Okay. That seems fair to me. Let's keep moving. Atlanta, Arizona. Didn't play this one either. Market was apparently unprepared for Kyler Murray to start, which is weird. But then there was a backstop. Some people pretty clearly don't expect Kyler Murray to be that much of an upgrade, I suppose. There are injuries circling this Arizona team that matter for sure. The fact that they're one-dimensional and don't have any semblance of a running game outside of whatever Murray will get on his own on the ground, I'm sure will be a factor. Atlanta's defense being a little bit embarrassed last week and coming in with a little sharper performance would be expected. Atlanta's offense is still a huge fucking problem. I don't think that anything was solved by switching to Heineke. Heineke was really loose with the ball in that game, but only paid the price a couple of times. And I think ultimately the Arizona defense is not the type of unit that I would be dying to go against conventional wisdom that Heineke's an upgrade over Ritter. So I hope the Falcons win this game. And I hope the market gives us another chance to bet against him later.
No, yeah. The more I looked at it, and I did watch that game, and then I looked at the Heineke numbers. I looked at Heineke's numbers from year past. Really, sure. Only the one really good year of sample. I looked at what we got from Ritter, and it's like they're the same quarterback in the end, they just get there a different way. Where Ritter is shorter, less ADOT, less air yards, maybe a little more efficient. The turnovers have been massive and the mistakes have been massive. Where Heineke is going to make those big mistakes, and it's going to be less random because he's pushing the ball further down the field. Like you said, he's a little loosier-goosier. He's going to go for some bigger plays, but he's going to make more mistakes, more turnovers, more, third and long failures. So I came down to it. I'm like, I am not making an adjustment for the quarterback. Basically, is where we're at. It's the same number. It just got there a different way. I don't know what to do with Kyler. If Kyler can run effectively, if they're calling, if I get to the end of the first couple drops, and they've called like 2 or 3 clearly scripted runs for Kyler Murray, I might be live betting the Cardinals because it says like, hey, he has told the coaching staff he's good to go. The coaching staff is fully ready to use him every which way but loose. And if he looks good, it's not the same without Grady Jarrett. I know there should be a little bit of a bounce back after a real embarrassing game, but it's still a road game. Headed out west. I don't think it's one of the tougher places to play, but it's still a road game, and this defense isn't the same. So, I don't know how far I need to upgrade this team for Kyler. I'm very excited to watch this, at least the first half, to see where he's at. Yep. And it's a tryout for him, probably. It might be here, it might be somewhere else, but he needs to put some good film on tape.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I'm probably live betting it if
I'll go on record and saying I hope one of these teams wins, Andy.
We're already cheering for one tie.
Because if the Falcons win, there may be an opportunity to fade them some more later this season. And if the Cardinals win, that means Kyler Murray is what they have been advertising, that he looks great, never looked better, feeling it, love the system, best shape of his life type of shit. And you know why that would be good? Because football stinks right now in general. And I would love for the 4:00 games they have left on their schedule to be entertaining. I would love for their games against the Niners, the Eagles, the Seahawks to be meaningful at the end of this season. I'd love to see them at Houston next week. Would be a fun handicap if Kyler's live, if he's got some pop, if he's got some.
Yeah,
zip.
we've had
would love Kyler looking good.
I would love a quarterback that has had high-end Pro Bowl level play to come back and look good. It's good for the product. That's
right. And he's been missing just long enough that you can't count on him, being distracted by Call of Duty swoon. So it is.
That's coming out like in 2 days.
Yeah,
Josh Dobbs I hope Josh Dobbs gets it soon. I'd like him to be fun. That's another one that. Do you see Josh Dobbs' comeback player of the year price? It's like 15-1 at some places. What is he coming back from?
He's coming back from being benched for Clayton Tune, Andy.
I guess that hurts worse than most ACLs.
If you get benched for Clayton Tune, your career's over. And he came back from that already.
I want to nip this. I want to nip this one in the bud. I don't think Wentz plays. They really have making it sound like Stafford should be ready to go. I don't know if I need Carson Wentz in my life at this point.
Somebody who's connected told us that, I guess marginally connected.
They just know that they didn't have a good enough backup at this point.
Yeah, but I think Wentz agreed to come, or there was some handshake of, hey, we're going to give you a real opportunity to start if the season doesn't get right for us. So he maybe chalk him in for Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, January type of games. All right.
We might get to bet against Wentz. I just don't know if I want to do it quite yet.
Detroit, LAC. I played the Lions here at 2.5. It's at 3. The case is pretty straightforward, which is you have a good coaching staff coming off of a period of self-reflection at full strength on offense. David Montgomery, Frank Ragnow, and the guard, I can't remember his name, all coming back for this one. Combine that with a wide receiver core that got a much needed stretch of rest, and a good offensive coordinator who can figure out exactly how he wants to press the buttons. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, and Reynolds and Gibbs and Montgomery. Like this is going to be fun to see how this Lions offense matures after the bye. Meanwhile, the Chargers are undermanned in the defensive secondary. They are undermanned in the offensive skill position group. And for those reasons, they are the type of team that is going to be beaten by a team that is at full strength and has good coaches. That's my sincere feelings. And obviously I liked 2.5, but I'm not in love with 3. If you want to play this one, you might as well swing for some alts because the Lions could, they could put together a complete performance here, and I wouldn't be surprised. Any general thoughts on this game before I ask you about the situation and the weird kind of anomaly that is?
Same stuff. Like Jonah Jackson looks like he's fine. They're getting Ragnow looks like he's fine. That matters. Obviously, David Montgomery is a help. Gibbs had a nice game, but again, that was against like a bottom 5 running defense. He's not going to put up 150 by himself every week. Getting Montgomery back is very important to this offense. It's super helpful. And I think even Halapula Vaitai was limited today. So getting healthy all along the offensive line, 3 is probably about right. It's a road game. It's not a really good road atmosphere, but it's still a travel spot after the bye. And yes, so we've talked about the Widowmaker. The Widowmaker is a team who's getting 10 days rest because they played on Thursday and they are not playing against till they're not playing again till Monday?
Yes.
Versus
the setup is
the other team.
Yeah.
The other team is coming off a Monday.
Team coming off bye versus a team on the short week. Right. So
the original Widowmaker is the Widowmakers.
I'm sorry.
The Widowmakers, you're coming off Thursday, your opponent's coming off Monday. So they have a short week, you have a long week.
Yeah.
So and that has been very successful. You had the stats on that. We talked about it. It was an easy win last
absurdly
time.
Good ATS. Yeah.
You would think, well, if 10 days rest is good, 14 should be even better. But when you go run it on the SKDU, I mean, give me the stats because that's what we have. We have a short week for the Chargers, and the Lions have had 2 weeks off.
Yeah, and this actually kind of violates the Widowmaker thesis if you go by sort of the kind of fundamental rules of these types of angles, which is they should glide, right? Like, you shouldn't have like a weird observation that's unexplainable when there's something on either side of you, right? But this is kind of one of those. And and what's really upsetting is teams coming off of a bye in general have about a 4% bump in win probability historically.
Yeah.
Teams coming off a bye playing a team on short rest have a losing straight up record. There's a win probability penalty for those teams, which doesn't make sense. So if you are just ignoring team quality, ignoring, you say our sample is big enough that it reflects just kind of average situation. It doesn't make sense, and
it was a decent sample size. It was triple digit amount of games.
Go for it. I'm pulling it up right now. But but ultimately, this is literally rest more than 10 days versus opponent rest less than 6.
So I'm with Mass here. Mass has a good comment. It says it makes sense if the players are going on vacation with the time off. So when you get the bye week, you don't work on football for the first week.
That should affect all teams on bye.
It should affect all. That's what I'm saying. It should affect all teams always. So this one just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Unless these teams on the short week are doing something different, or the fact that it is just it's. I don't know. You'd have to break these down one by one, and if you look through it, and maybe 65% of the time, it was like, oh man, this was a coaching. Like if I gave every coach a rating 1 through 10, 65% of the time, the better coach is the shorter week guy, and just something silly like that. I can't explain it any other way. There has to be something like that.
62 games. A team coming off their bye is playing a team on short rest.
Yeah,
and going back to the 90s. I'm excluding playoff games because a playoff game, there's plenty of examples of a team playing on Saturday who's playing against the 1 seed in the playoffs coming off of a bye. Those are different shit. Scalping those. 22 and 38 straight up. That means that you are winning the game 37% of the time when you have an extra week to prepare and your opponent has 6 days. And then same exact numbers for covering the spread, 22, 38, and 1. So for some bizarre reason, the spread is mispriced by 2.7 points toward the team that is on short rest in these 68 game sample, which is just
I'm going to
bananas.
take that sample and break it. I feel like
you want to dig into a little more. Okay.
Well, no, I think it's an off-season project. Like looking at each game.
It's possible this is like a rust thing, maybe. Like the team that's on short rest is just like a little more primed to play. I have no freaking clue. It is just it's a little unexplainable.
Are you too rested? That said, it's still not a big enough sample size to take you off any single game.
No.
If you like this matchup, and yes, at 2.5, it was probably a good bet.
And the single example we have of this year was the Bengals throttling the 49ers 31-17. So, although that was mostly because of turnovers. So that is
this will be the 69th game, Benson.
That's a good point.
It's just the end of 68.
Chargers. Well, hopefully they cover the 2.5, and I don't care if the 3 is a push.
Giants Dallas, not a game I want to discuss.
Shower fart game of the week. Tommy DeVito is on the America's game of the week.
I wrote it. I wrote in the newsletter today about all the adjustments I made for all the different quarterback changes. And I spent a pretty decent amount of time trying to like actually think how I would rate Matt Barkley. And it's funny because before I even got to push send on the email, it was announced that it was going to be DeVito again. So it didn't matter. But in the end, I'm like, just because Matt Barkley has played some games and it's been a while. It has been a while since he's played some games as a like, hey, you're the starter, you're prepping, you're going. This isn't just throwaway time. This isn't a week 18 where you need to fill in. I still think I'd need to be like a 1-point upgrade from Tommy DeVito. That said, what's the difference between 16.5 and 15.5, guys? This is a game. There's no way I could take the Giants at under 17. And even that, I don't know if I'd feel super good about this because what we saw from that offense was, I mean, really, really, really tough. Clayton Tune level shit. And it's not even like, I don't know, man. It's not even like they played a great defense. It's just, you're not going to do anything with Tommy DeVito. You got Waller hurt. They can kind of focus in on the run game, say, let's take away Barkley and make Tommy DeVito try to beat us. There's no number here that's going to appear in the market that's going to give me any appetite for the Giants. If you take the Cowboys at 17, if you take the Cowboys alt at 21, 24, 27.5, whatever you want, not judging whatsoever. Dallas first half, Patrick points out there's going to be some sacks. What we're hoping for, obviously, is
Micah Parsons sacks.
Micah Parsons breaks Derek Thomas's single game sack record with 8.5.
It doesn't feel like that's too much of an ask, right?
No, honestly.
Do you think
I don't know what the dime situation is with this contract. I don't know how much dead money. It's a bunch, though.
Do you think there's ever been a shower fart game of the week that has coincided with America's game of the week?
America's fart of the week.
America's fart of the week. This is new territory here.
This is a really good Dallas team too. This is
here. Okay.
And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're starting Tommy DeVito, Danny DeVito, or freaking Vinny Testaverde. You didn't want to play the Cowboys this week. What a bad week to play the Cowboys for anybody. After, a game that they have to know. Yeah. Like we lost that game. The Eagles didn't. The Eagles are great, but we lost that game in the end. Like it's such a motivation bounce back here.
Give me a guess here. Ready? I want you to set a profit exchange market for me on this game because I need some skin in it. You ready?
Yes.
Eagles Cowboys was the most watched football game since the Super Bowl with 27.1 million viewers for Fox. What is the number for Cowboys Giants?
I mean,
how many sick people are going to tune in?
Did you see the map? Like 90% of America is getting this.
How many of them are going to actually sit down and watch this game instead of do anything else with their Sunday?
It's like it's got to be 28.
What? No, 27.1 million watched Eagles last week.
Okay.
What's the number this week for Eagles Giants? For Cowboys Giants? You think it's more?
I mean, it's the Giants. The Giants is a bigger metropolitan area than the Philly area.
You're going to put the number at 20. I'm going to go under. Give me the under.
28.2.
Give me the under. Give me the under.
It's still, dude, the Cowboys are obviously you saw that last week of the Eagles game, but the Cowboys are such a draw still. It doesn't matter.
Of course.
They have fans everywhere.
Okay. Well,
go 20. I'm going 28. I'm saying this is a bigger draw.
Italy is watching. Italy is watching Tommy.
Yeah.
Italy is tuning in.
There's a little Italy in every city.
Their favorite
son.
They are tuning in for their favorite son. That is a really good point. Okay. Well, give me a real market. Give me a think about it and tell
Jackie
me later.
Jr. He does look like Jackie Jr.
Okay. So out of my database of 8,822 football games, Andy, what is the push probability of 16?
2%, under 2%, 1.7.
Oh, it is 2.0. Holy crap. How did you nail that? You nailed that.
All the numbers that aren't,
you
all
get
the numbers
both
that aren't important are like 2 to 3.
You get both showcases.
You get the scooter, you get the washer dryer, you get the treadmill.
2.0. Wow. I can't believe you know your push probabilities out to 16 so well. Well done, Andy. Well done. Awesome.
Only an 8,000.
Now I'm glad we have the Sheriff Arc game of the week. Washington at Seattle.
I'm going to watch the shit out of this game.
I played some Seattle. There's some sharp people that like Washington here. The Seattle case is pretty strong, I think, which is they can blitz Howell and bring out what we saw from him earlier in the season, as opposed to the guy that's looked a little more competent at avoiding sacks the last handful of weeks. And I think the Seahawks are poised offensively to take advantage of a secondary that does not play man coverage well and cannot kind of bring out the worst in Geno Smith from a passer perspective. I think the Seahawks have a pretty decent ability to kind of make this two-way offense and put a game away with the lead and let their defense kind of feel a little bit better about themselves after that beating they took last week. Commanders are one-dimensional. They're not even really trying to run the ball anymore, which, that's cool. But against the Seahawks, where that's kind of their strength, I don't know, man. Or I mean, their running defense is very, very, very good. I shouldn't say it's their strength, but they have kind of the exact right makeup to really frustrate a quarterback like Howell, I think. So this feels like hand in glove.
I like the over. You almost just described why I like the over. I like. And this was one of the coaches I did want to talk about in Bieniemy. I like his damn the torpedoes, let's throw the ball 50 times in a row kind of thing, where he doesn't care. He's like, I don't need to establish the run if we're down by 15 here. Like, I need touchdowns. I need chunks of yardage. Howell's got a big ass arm. Fuck it. This is what we're doing. So I like them from a negative game state because we could get either some big plays because they have the receivers to do it, or we could get some big turnovers in plus field position. I just need the Seahawks to be able to convert because that's been kind of a bugaboo for them in some of these games. Obviously, remember the Arizona game.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I think this number's fine at 6 in Seattle. But this is a high variance game where
that's a great call.
I don't think the Seahawks win and don't cover. I think if you lose this, the Seahawks have bungled this and lost straight up.
Right. So this either goes Seahawks run away.
If I'm betting Commanders, I'm betting them straight.
Yeah, money line. Yeah, right. That's I take no exception to that. Right. Like some idea that this is sort of a closely kept chess match of a game is not really. Doesn't really check out. I don't think this is a rerun of Commanders Patriots from last week where it was like kind of close and came down to the end. I really do think you're right. Either the Commanders passing offense is a success and the Seahawks are broken, or the Seahawks kind of fit hand in glove with their strengths against the Commanders' weaknesses and they can run away with this one. So lay the points or play the money line. Either one, fine by me. I'm gonna take my shot on the points though. I already bet it. Although the longer we've gone into the week, the less good I've felt about this one for a lot of the reasons you're saying, which is this is a high variance game and laying points like this in a high variance game is not as fruitful long term as taking them other side.
I mean, if they can put together the game plan that we've seen a couple times now, I kind of like what we've seen from the Seattle defense. against teams that have like a shittier quarterback or a quarterback that you can harass. Like it's I guess that works. Like I'm fine with that because we've seen it where, hey, we might not have the guys up front to do this. We can bring blitzes from different places, and obviously the Giants game sticks out so much where they just brought blitzes from
exactly.
everywhere.
Yeah, that's
the linebackers
literally just pick that playbook up and rerun. Like seriously,
run that same game plan where you have like, hey, guess what? Witherspoon's in the box like a bunch, and he's blitzing and he's tackling guys behind the line. We got an interruption.
Got it.
Golden Griffins slip inside the number. Nobody knows the MAAC better than Mr.
Always
Mamba Brains. It was always the Golden Griffins.
Yeah.
Speaking of I forgot to talk about it earlier on the Thursday game. I wanted your opinion on this. There's been a bunch, 2,000 traded on this market already. Look at that. Good job. But our deep dive podcast, Profit Exchange Market for Thursday is on Bryce Young.
Ooh,
225 is the yardage, and there is some liquidity available to the under if you want it.
Interesting.
I think so. No. There's liquidity to the over.
Oh,
people are
okay.
like, yeah, never mind. I read it backwards because it's the yes.
It's the yes.
No, we're flip flop. But if you want to bet the yes on over 225, you can get plus 130. You can get plus 120 on the 225 yards. So I just wanted to mention that for the Thursday game. I had to make that market a little earlier, and I wanted to do head to head, but I didn't know which quarterback was going to start, so ended up leaving that one alone. Our Sunday night one. It is going to be Zach Wilson versus AOC yardage straight up. Who throws more? And before you get too down on Wilson, he did rack up quite a bit of yardage in garbage time. And I do want to point out that what a bad game for the Jets because that defense played so hard. Like basically it was one punt return, one fumble that got returned a long ways, and there was only really one good offensive drive from the Chargers. The Jets go 0 for 2 in the red zone. Obviously, one was trash late that didn't really matter.
I don't even know if that was that drive. I don't know if that drive was even really that good. That was like one broken play, right?
It was a broken play, a face mask, and then they scored on both of their red zone positions. The Jets really only had one red zone position. I don't want to count the last one where it was garbage time, but like the Jets defense played a really good game, man. And that to lose 27-6 on that scoreboard had to feel so bad for that team.
Yeah.
They need this one to feel better, but AOC's playing kind of decent. He's not gonna wow you, but it's another one of those where it's like, hey, here's a guy we know is sort of limited. That's why he got drafted where he did, but he can handle this game plan if we give it to him, and we have enough weapons around him to make it useful. They're starting to get Jacobs going a little. It's not a great matchup where, hey, we can maybe get a ton out of Jacobs, but AOC isn't like some massive downgrade. I think he's better than Hoyer.
Is that even a question?
The last time, to remember that last time Matt Barkley played, it's because he had to come in relief of Brian Hoyer.
That's amazing.
Because that was a Jay Cutler year.
2014, 16? Oh, Jesus, wow. No, AOC is clearly better than Hoyer. AOC is probably better than Jimmy G right now by a decent margin.
I looked at the numbers. It wasn't. I almost said I should upgrade it, but Jimmy G is just kind of efficient outside of the one bad turnover every game.
I don't know. His EPA per play so far this season minus 0.05. As all from that one bad game.
Who's that? Jimmy
G.
Yeah, suss out turnovers. He can move the ball.
AOC realistically could have beat. He's outperforming Jimmy G in EPA so far this season, and realistically, he could have beat the Chargers in that game where he came in emergency relief, or it was like snap duty, or it was like a late call that he was going to be the quarterback in the week cycle, is what I remember. And he gave the Chargers a really non-trivial effort and a decent fight, and he beat the hell out of the Giants last week. I think AOC's fine. I think he's probably
Yeah.
It will be wild if he goes down as the third best quarterback from this draft. It will be crazy.
Yeah, Barkley did get some time when he was with the Bills as well, but like the last time he legitimately started was way back. It's been a while.
The real thing I'm interested in your opinion on, the Jets, and somebody made a comment about the Saleh comments, and that's where immediately my head went for this handicap, right?
I don't know if this is the real Joey Graybeal, but for those of you that don't follow mini golf, Joey Graybeal is probably the best mini golfer in the world right now. Guy has been on a tear this year.
I don't know why he's kicking you in the nuts.
I watched. He's just giving me grief. He's a nice guy. I watched the guy go shoot like a 25. I mean, just sick numbers.
That sounds pretty good.
It's on a 36. That's a lot of hole-in-ones.
Yeah, it is. So my thought for this game immediately went to, you play on a Monday night at home. Your defense puts up a top 10 of the year type of effort against the Chargers. You lose going away.
Yeah.
Right?
You lose by 3 scores.
And out of that game, your coach gives the quarterback a
vote of confidence.
Yeah. But in a way that just says it all perfectly, which is, this wasn't even his worst game. Was that a real quote, or did I get?
No, that was 100% real. Like I had to go check. I thought that was one of those where, we get the funny comment about like, hey, Deshaun Watson learned how to take no for an answer or whatever. Yeah, that wasn't real. But like, no, this was a real solid comment. And of all the backhanded compliments that you can dish out, like, it's one thing to say that to your buddies. It's another one to do that in like a presser.
Yeah. And so the Jets went from kind of in the mix for a playoff spot, losing that game, now out of the mix, and they have relatively little, kind of hope that there's going to be any change anytime soon. I mean, is there an effort here by the Jets defense to send a message to Saleh? Is there a Vegas flu potential here where this is like, we've had enough, like we're putting in more than our fair share here, and we're kind of done with it. Is there any whiff of that here potentially? Because if there is, the Raiders should probably be like 5-point favorites. If the Jets defense does not give you a plus effort in this game, the Raiders are winning.
This is you're naming all the reasons for me to pass in this. I make this number pretty close.
Okay.
It's weird. It's like, hey, you take this. This is the Jets are the ultimate example of how you should weigh your defense and how you should weigh your offense when you're trying to rate an NFL team. Mm-hmm. So if you take a top 5 defense and a bottom 5 offense and put them together, you don't just end up with a 15 or 16 in the rating. Like, the offense matters so much more. Mm-hmm. And that's why this team is like the 23rd, 24th best team in the league, because it doesn't matter if you're off, your defense can be that good. And if you don't have an offense, it's going to put you that far down in the power ratings. It's going to put you in that bad of a spot, because like we saw, they got an all-world performance last week, just couldn't move the ball at all, weren't doing anything right, making bad decisions. Wilson regressed from the highs of where he was a couple weeks ago. So the Jets defense has every reason to start regressing, because it's hard to care that much when your offense can't do it. And the Raiders have every reason to regress off the high of the new coach bounce. Like, you can't ride that motivation wave forever. It's still not a great team. Crosby's great. Like we said, AOC is passable.
I think everybody should practice this week pretty freaking happy. Pretty engaged, pretty into the workout, pretty into let's get ready to continue to win. It must
is in
pretty
Vegas.
good.
I think if there ever was a case for the new coach bump lasting a strong second week, it's like, hey, motherfuckers, this is my Antonio Pierce voice. Hey, motherfuckers, we're on prime time. We're going to show them, this was no fluke. Yeah. This wasn't just us beating a shitty Tommy DeVito.
You remember the last primetime game? You remember our last primetime game? Yeah. Remember how bad it felt to get beat? Well, this time we're gonna make the Jets feel that way.
We've got another. Yeah. I got good news for you, Max. Max, look at me. I've got good news. We've got another shitty quarterback this week. We're gonna tear him a new one. You're gonna have 5 sacks. You're gonna play 80 snaps.
Yes, you're not gonna believe this. You're not gonna believe this. He's behind a worse offensive line.
Yeah,
maybe.
that is another reason why it shouldn't give all the blame to Zach Wilson. That offensive line was getting beat.
Yeah. Oh,
hard,
yeah.
Left and
they
right.
made Joey Bosa look like 2018 peak Joey Bosa. That was I don't know, maybe Joey Bosa's right now. I have no idea, but
he looked good against the Bears. And obviously it wasn't their best performance as a team, but he's kind of back. He looks pretty quick right now. His moves, I don't know, he's always been strong as an ox. So the pass rush looked really good last week for them.
Okay.
As far as Chargers pass rushes have gone over the past few years.
Yeah, the best Joey Bosa season on my records is 2017. Then he got hurt in 18, and then he was amazing again in 19, and then he just hasn't been really in that ballpark since. All right. I
like this 5 dots out there. Yeah. Tough to call it a line. At first I thought this was like an overfitting data points joke, but I got you.
Yeah, I mean, they I don't think we're getting anybody back, right? Like this is still centers out, and didn't they have another guy go down? I think I counted another guy go down.
There was like 2 or 3 guys that went out during the game that were popping in and out.
We're still starting rookie Joe Tippmann, Lincoln Tomlinson, Mekhi Becton, Max Mitchell. Billy Turner went. Billy Turner like broke his arm or something, didn't he? I think Billy Turner hurt
his finger. I think it was just a finger injury. Becton was limited today. Dwayne Brown's hip is still bothering him. We'll see.
Okay. This is
for this would be Raiders or nothing, and I may have given a fake cosplay kayfabe freaking pump you up speech that pumped me up enough.
Into the Raiders.
I might bet the Raiders money line here.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a time to pivot. I think on the momentum that is the Raiders with this dead cat bounce, but I don't think it's against the Jets in this moment. And I mean, we will revisit this in depth at halftime as to whether or not the Jets spent their Saturday night in Vegas preparing for this game or blowing off some steam.
When is the F1 race? Are they even going to be able to like go have fun?
It's not this weekend. It's next weekend.
No, the F1 race is the 19th.
It's the next weekend. Yeah. Yep. It's like right around Thanksgiving, right? Right. Yeah. It's next weekend.
Oh, your finger hurts. Pretty soon your back is going to hurt because you just pulled landscape in half. That movie. I'm pretty sure I had that movie on VHS. All right. Yeah. Secret team play. Team total play. We have the opportunity to bet in under 10.5 for the full game.
Okay. Should we do it?
Is that something you have the appetite for? I don't know what the other cases would be. Packers under 16.5.
I mean, I wanted to throw I had intended to throw Niners team total over into the mix to see if you wanted to try to sell high on the Jags defense, but the weather rain shit is kind of scaring me off. So.
It might be a little rainy down there where that one is a touch scary. For me, it's a couple of these unders or. Okay.
Should we get some skin in the anything in the Sunday morning game, or are you just gonna give up on that one?
Summer wind blowing in. Indianapolis 21.5. I have no appetite for betting that. It's Ravens over 21.5. Packers under 16.5, Giants under 10.5 are my recommendations. What say you, Drew?
Let's do Packers under. Is that what you said?
Packers under 16.5, getting plus money, which means if you guys look around, I'm pretty sure you can find a 17.
You know why I like that one, Andy? Because Mike Tomlin's unique adjustments for exactly how he wants to bring out the worst in Jordan Love will be on display.
Everybody else is hitting the hitting the playbook with a hammer. He's out there like a clockmaker, like with these tiny screwdrivers.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Matt Canada on the sideline maybe makes a difference.
Well, that doesn't help us for the team total under. I'm specifically counting Mike Tomlin's unique game-by-game adjustments being the factor here, Andy, to get our Packers team total under home.
Dylan Brooks shutting down LeBron tonight.
Yeah, a lot of funny results.
As predicted. Giannis kicked out of the game.
People are asking, when are the Celtics going to get Porzingis some help? You know, he's out here doing it all.
He's fitting in. He's fitting in better than I'd hoped.
He is. But Nick Nurse
played two of the three top teams in the league in like consecutive, games here. What are you gonna do? Yeah. If Ant plays like that, Timberwolves are good. Obviously, the Sixers getting a lot out of Maxey. What are you gonna do? You played some tough.
Is the buzz real yet in Minnesota about the Timberwolves?
It's hard to like give them too much credit. I think Zion was out tonight, right?
Yeah. So is CJ.
Not Mariah Mills' baby, a different baby. Whole different person. Man, that baby had to be like 18 pounds. Can you imagine how big Zion's baby is? I'd like to see a weight and height on that thing when it comes out.
Absolutely.
We hopefully baby and mother are doing just fine. Congrats to Zion. And yes, I like the NBA tourney. I think it's gonna be fun once we get to the final like 4 teams and it actually like matters. But like during the group play, the fact that it's interdispersed during the season and half the time if you don't know or you don't see the game and know the court is there, you don't even know it's a tournament game, man. Like Minnesota, New Orleans, that's not a tournament game, correct?
No.
Okay.
No, Tuesdays and Fridays.
And they didn't play on Tuesday this week.
Right. So this week so last week it was only Friday. This week it's only Friday. And from here out it's Tuesdays, Fridays. Until everybody's play each other.
You got a quick play on Golden State Denver for the live listeners?
I am looking out for a second half under because the tendencies say second half overs are usually good for Warriors games, but that counts on Draymond Green being available, and he is out for personal reasons. Jamal Murray out for the Nuggets as well, which means that this is probably going to be a little bit of a little bit slower second half. So I'm watching scoring in the first half. This was steamed over today, and I agree with that. In general, that makes sense because it was wrong on the open. But now that it's steamed to this pretty high total, I think that sets up pretty well to get a good entry to second half under for Nuggets Warriors.
Yeah, good job, Knicks. And we stinged a guy. Sorry, Brian Kirshner. All right, let's call it a week. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Everybody, please hit the thumbs up on the way out. Thanks to all the regulars, the Sam Lipscombs and the Patricks, the guys who've been around.
Yeah.
Thanks to Joey
Graybeal, regular
professional putting great Joey Graybeal. I think he won the U.S. Open this year. He's won a bunch, guys. He's just a stud all around. T-Wolves are a wagon. We'll see you guys tomorrow night for the shit bowl on Thursday. I really there. He said thanks, Dan. We didn't thank Dan at all for producing.
Oh yeah, thank you, Dan.
You know why? Because Dan is the Mike Tomlin of producers. It's a fucking thank you.
He never lets you know what he's doing to make the